Hello guys and welcome to my new video, and today we're going to be talking about some of the big changes that Blizzard has announced in terms of the War Within beta, in terms of healing, in terms of tanks being nerfed. This is a healing video. I want to talk about how it feels to heal Mythic Plus dungeons in the War Within. Is it fun? Is it changing? Is it something that is worth to come back to? Let's go and get started. When I first heard about these changes, I had to hop on the beta to kind of test it out myself. The short version, if you don't know, tanks have been nerfed, so that means healers need to focus on tanks a bit more, and tanks are more reliant on healers, and this has caused a huge upstir, especially in the tanking community, and tanks have been very vocal about how much they hate this change. So how does this impact me as a healer? Is it going to be more fun? Is there going to be a bigger shortage of tanks? Is there going to be a bigger shortage of healers because healers don't want to heal tanks and tanks don't want to be reliant on healers? And what's going to happen? So first of all, it's important to note that this is beta and there's still going to be ongoing changes. I think their blue post was very interesting in terms of pinpointing the possible issues that they don't want to happen. So first of all, you can look at here. Healer gameplay should not be dominated by tank healing. I think a lot of healers out there might be scared about the fact that they might have to focus on tanks 24/7. Maybe they'll have to cast 5 or 6 heals in order to top them up, and it might not be the most engaging gameplay. And Blizzard doesn't want you to focus on tanks 24/7. How are they going to achieve that? I think tuning is going to be very, very important. Tank gameplay should not significantly change or require actions like kiting to survive. And this is a big one because I think majority of tanks don't want to go back to that Shadowlands Season 1 meta where kiting was a big deal. Your whole group would try to provide CC so the tank could get away. If you played Elemental Shaman, you place your Earthquake and then the tank will move all the mobs out of your Earthquake. I don't think tanks enjoy. I'm willing to bet that the majority of tanks out there do not like kiting. I know there's quite a few, or there is going to be exceptions to this rule. And it's also very important to acknowledge this sentence. We'll take these changes into account in encounter tuning as well. And I think one of the reasons why there's a lot of people who are really upset about these changes, because Blizzard basically said, hey, we're nerfing tanks, go and test them, without actually following up with some sort of meaningful dungeon tuning. Keep in mind, it is very important to note that Fortified has been nerfed, which is honestly an amazing change. And on top of that, Blizzard has increased single target healing for a lot of classes out there. For example, Druid regrowth is going to be 30% stronger, or healing surge for Shamans is 20% stronger, which is honestly very noticeable. So what is happening based on my Mythic Plus testing so far? Tanks need more healing. Again, there is exception to this rule because certain tanks got hit harder than others, but that is basically tuning issue. Your single target healing is improved and Fortified has been nerfed, which basically means that Blizzard is shifting power from tanks, giving it to healers, and forcing healers to spend more time on tank healing. And if I were to give you a scenario what I think Blizzard is trying to achieve with these changes, for example, you approach a trash pack and majority of the damage that's happening is going to be to your tank. Previously you might be like, okay, the tank is taking damage, they're going to be fine, they're really strong, I'm going to go into my kitty form as Resto Druid and start doing damage. And I think Blizzard to some extent is trying to make you reconsider that situation in terms of, can I go and start doing DPS? Maybe I should throw in a life bloom on the tank, maybe I should apply HOTS, maybe I should make sure the tank is safe, maybe I should apply a beacon if I'm playing Holy Paladin, and only then think about doing damage. Again, depending on tuning, this can go wrong in many different ways, where you focus on tank 24/7 or the tank has to kite, which again Blizzard doesn't want. But how are they going to achieve that? I think most people can to some extent understand what Blizzard is trying to achieve by reading the blue post. Do people think that Blizzard can achieve this balance in a very meaningful and a fun way? I think that's where people are doubting, because historically Blizzard hasn't been the best in terms of tuning dungeon damage. A lot of the dungeons that are first released are severely overtuned, and it takes weeks if not months to give you a finished version of that dungeon that is playable and is actually fun. But guys, this is a discussion video. I really want to know your opinions. I'm going to read every single comment out there because I want to know how many healers enjoy tank healing, how many healers hate tank healing because they've been playing Dragonflight. And if you play in Dragonflight, you basically have a 4-person party. A lot of times you don't have to focus on the tank, you just have to focus on yourself and the DPS. There's a lot of burst damage and all that, and we're going to cover that in this next section of the video in terms of what healing is like in Mythic Plus in the War Within. But my personal opinion about these tank nerfs is that I can see where Blizzard is coming from, and if Blizzard can actually achieve all the things that they mentioned in the blue post, I don't think it's necessarily the end of the world or time to quit your tank, or I don't think it's necessarily the worst thing ever. Because if they can achieve what they said in the blue post, which is a big if a healer has to focus a little bit more on a tank, and Blizzard designs encounters in such a way that it takes that into account, that I have to focus on a tank and therefore there's less AoE damage because I have to heal tank, I don't think that's the end of the world. I'm going to play a bit of devil's advocate here in terms of trying to see both sides here, because I know there's quite a few healers out there who have been playing Dragonflight a lot and they don't want to heal a tank. And believe me, I was kind of like that as well, especially when I started playing Cataclysm and I just realized, hey, tanks actually need healing. It was actually a shock to me. And I know a lot of healers who really don't enjoy that, but I also noticed quite a few healers who would willingly trade their DPS time in order to provide more healing or spend more time healing. Which side is the correct one? Which side do you lean on? Please leave a comment below. I'm really interested. But let's talk about how healing is like in the War Within, because we talked about tank changes because they're going to apply to healing. They're going to change how you approach healing, how much time you spend DPSing, how much time you spend healing and things like that. Again, I really have to highlight the point that healer DPS doesn't really matter that much. Based on my testing so far, again, survivability is a really important aspect. I've done a bunch of beta keys, I've done a bunch of different dungeons, I've played every single healer, and again, I live in the beta. I spent most of my time just playing around beta, and the healing so far is, I don't think it's perfect. I still think it's somewhat reminiscent of Dragonflight. I think defensives are kings, good use of defensives, good survivability. I think augmentation of Evoker to some extent is rising because survivability of tanks is getting nerfed. I think augmentation is an issue when it comes to balancing Mythic Plus, especially high keys. I don't know if that's a big issue for the whole community because we might only impact a small percentage. But overall, healing so far, I've been doing most of my Mythic Plus dungeons in pugs, and healing so far is still very spiky. I know Blizzard is messing around with player HP and things like that, and keep in mind, player HP increases, these are band-aid fixes. Blizzard has been doing that for many different expansions where they increase players HP because healing is too easy or too spiky. Now, a lot of people, when they see players HP has been increased, therefore healers have been nerfed, and they see that as a really negative thing. It's not actually a negative thing, because if Blizzard is able to increase players HP, there's going to be less spiky damage, there's going to be a lot less of this ping pong type of healing, and then Blizzard can make encounters according. So increasing players HP is not actually a bad thing, because I think a lot of healers out there don't like this one-shot ping pong type of meta. I don't think a lot of healers like that. Let me know if you enjoy this reactive type of gameplay that you did see for a lot of the Dragonflight, where you would have to keep everyone at 100% HP, otherwise they're in danger of dying. I still think similar things are happening in the War Within. You still want to keep everyone topped up because there's still so many nasty overlaps, there's so many one-shots, and this is extremely relevant when you look at the different skill levels of groups. And again, I've been playing beta a lot, and the difference in keys is absolutely insane. First of all, a lot of the new dungeons and even older dungeons have been made harder, like Mistweaver side and things like that. There's been more mechanics added. A lot of the dungeons require a lot of stops, a lot of interrupts. A lot of swirlies on the ground. You need to avoid them. They're just extremely punishing. This is why a lot of people are talking about the fact that priests don't have interrupt. They don't have a lot of other utility in terms of helping the party, and people are a little bit down against priests, especially in that Mythic Plus content. Because there's a lot of things to keep track of, with the fact that Vengeance is no longer the CC monster that it was in Dragonflight. So now the whole group really needs to pay attention. I've been doing pugs most of my time in beta, and I could do a group. I could do the same key level, a different group, and I could wipe on a trash pack, the first trash pack, the first boss, because people are not using defensives, they're not using interrupts, and it's just an absolute nightmare. And the amount of healing that I need to do as a healer is absolutely stressful. And then I could join a different group, same dungeon, same key level, and just blast through the dungeon. Everyone's using defensives, everyone's using interrupts, and the amount of healing that I need to do is a fraction of what I need to do with the other group. And the gap between these groups, let's say one group is an okay group and the other group is a good group, the gap between them is widening even further because the dungeons are so punishing. If you don't have a perfect defensive usage, if you don't have interrupts, if you don't have stops, it is extremely punishing, and this changes healer's experience in a really significant way. And this is why we talk about defensive and defensive bloat. Blizzard has to design Mythic Plus encounters in such a way that in order to make them scary, they need to, again, the damage has to be insane because they assume that people are going to use defensives. And in organized content, okay, people are going to change their defensives in a good way, because there's a lot of classes who have 1, 2, or maybe even 3 defensives to use, on top of the fact that groups might be running augmentation, which also provides additional defensive value. Don't get me wrong, skill expression is important. I think skill should be rewarded. But if Blizzard would actually deal with defensive bloat in a meaningful way, they could design encounters in such a way that, hey, we can't have atrociously high damage happening because people can't mitigate it, and therefore there would be less spikiness. Basically what I'm waffling on about here is that if they reduce or remove some of the defensives, they would be able to tune encounters in a better way, which would simplify content for pug groups and would also provide additional skill expression to healers. And on a side note, one of my favorite encounters to heal was in Halls of Infusion 3rd boss with consistent rot damage, because it made you feel really good to see big numbers, and it really made you feel like a healer, which is honestly a testament to me in terms of how healers feel about healing consistent damage versus DPS getting one shot because they didn't use a defensive. But hey, this is all fun in games, talking about healing, having less one-shot mechanics, being less spiky and all that. But it is Mythic Plus content, it is scalable content, and designing or tuning for scalable content is extremely difficult. This is why I think Blizzard needs to actually, instead of making these HP changes, which I don't think are bad, they are band-aid fixes. They do that throughout expansions, because they do these HP increases, but then eventually after a patch or two, healer power catches up, and then Blizzard has to do another HP increase. Blizzard needs to find a way of fixing the scaling of Mythic Plus and adding some substantial increases that will, again, change how Mythic Plus operates. Maybe they should change the damage modifiers, or how fast the damage modifiers scale up with key level. Maybe they should change how stamina scales up in key levels, or how stamina scales up generally. There needs to be some scalable fixes instead of these band-aid fixes that you throw once or twice during expansion and you just say, hey, we did what we could. But it's also important to acknowledge that there has been some fantastic changes. I really enjoyed the affix revamp. I enjoyed the fact that every single week is going to be a push week, which means that Blizzard can tune dungeons and affixes in a better way. Most recently, we saw changes to Fortified, or nerfs to Fortified, which I really enjoyed as well, and I'm hoping for more changes in the future. So the summary of the video, I still think that the healing in the War Within is too spiky, and I think the defensive bloat is a big culprit in terms of preventing Blizzard from designing encounters in such a way that you can't have spikiness. I don't think a lot of healers enjoy one-shot meta. Let me know. I'll be very surprised if there's people who like this one-shot or this ping-pong type of healing that Blizzard had for a little while. I think healers would generally like to see something a lot different. I think Blizzard should really consider toning down the amount of stuff that is happening in some of these, especially newer dungeons. Some people were even talking about if you miss an interrupt that it would usually one-shot you. Instead, missing that interrupt would reduce the damage you deal, or maybe stun you. Something that is a bit less punishing. But again, guys, I really want to know your opinion about this. So in my opinion, I still think there's quite a few things left to do to make healing fun. This is my personal opinion. You're more than welcome to agree or disagree. Let me know what makes healing fun for you. Let me know why you roll the healer. I generally believe that Blizzard should have spent more time experimenting in Dragonflight Season 4 with different concepts, different scaling, just different ideas in Dragonflight Season 4, so people could test them out a bit more. You're getting these changes right now. It's relatively close to the War Within. For example, with the tank nerfs, I can see why a lot of tanks are upset. I can see why a lot of healers are upset. But if you read the blue post, you can also see their kind of rationale behind it, and they don't want to repeat certain issues. Is that going to be achievable in the War Within beta session, or is this something that's going to continue throughout the expansion? That is yet to be seen. And guys, let me know how you feel about this video. Let me know how you feel about healing. What is the perfect scenario for you in terms of what makes healing the most fun? Do you enjoy healer DPS? Do you enjoy having to heal 24/7? Let me know how you feel about this. And if you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next guide.